Fantastic news on Coillte. I'm delighted. Obviously, the Labour TDs knew ahead of time, and we'd heard bits and pieces, but it is fantastic to hear you formally say it. You referenced repeatedly that it is an economic decision, and you and I have different views on this, and I respect your view, but it is worth just repeating that for the people I represent, it's not just a financial decision. And when I was partaking in the debate in the chamber about whether or not the harvesting rights should be sold, I said to someone afterwards, it was like partaking in a debate on whether or not the rights to speak the Irish language should be sold for 80 years. So, and I know you don't feel that about the trees, and that's fine. But certainly I do, and an awful lot of people in Wicklow do.
Finishing the tree hugging.
We take our trees very seriously, Chair. But listen, I'm delighted. Is it possible to release the economic analysis now that the decision has been made and therefore there isn't commercial sensitivity around it?
I'm advised that there is commercial sensitivity around the data that's provided to government, but let me reflect on that and I'll come back to you.
Okay. It'd be great to take a look, and specifically I want to try and draw a distinction between financial analysis and economic analysis. So I've done both in my past, and the distinction I would say is the financial analysis is an NPV calculation, essentially. It looks at various options, sell, don't sell, hybrid, whatever it is, and it looks at a discounted future cash flow, and it comes up with the best answer for the state. And a lot of commercial decisions get made on comparison of NPVs, a return on invested capital, whatever. The economic analysis is broader than that. It includes a financial analysis, but it also looks at things like the inherent value to the citizen of owning the forests. Right, so the Bacon report, for example, I think tried to put a value around that, and economists can. So I'd be very interested to know. I've had a similar. Economists, the field of economics, can take a decent stab at putting financial values around non-financial things. I've had the same debate with NAMA around how they do their valuing. So I'd be very interested to see, is it purely a financial analysis, or is it a broader economic analysis which would include public value, private value, and so forth? The strategic asset, I won't go back into it. You obviously don't believe it's a strategic asset. I believe, because of soil nutrition, tourism, timber industry, the fact that my understanding is we can't actually import much wood into the country for disease reasons, that we're very reliant on our indigenous stock. I could be wrong, but I think that's what I heard. Can I ask, are there criteria for strategic? Because obviously we all talk around it. I believe it is, you believe it isn't, we both have legitimate views. Is there a set of criteria used to determine this is strategic and that isn't strategic?
Firstly, I indicated, I think, in all my parliamentary questions at the very beginning of this process, that all the various broad range of issues would be considered in relation to the sale of Coillte, for example, the harvesting rights of trees, including ensuring the public access, amenity, the impact on existing contracts and sawmills and so on, all of those. And obviously you had to assign an economic value if you're going to insist that certain lands, woodlands wouldn't be open for sale at all, that access had to be guaranteed, that there'd be replanting. All of these things were part of the process. So it wasn't, as you've described, a financial analysis alone. I mean, it's very easy, and if I was on the other side of the house, I suppose I could easily, get an emotional argument in terms of selling trees, as if I was selling the forests. But that was never intended. I think Deputy Donnelly knows that. And I never ideologically had any great difficulty with, or understood a great difference between selling up front the trees in advance and selling them post facto when they're grown, which is what we're growing them for. As long as all the other bits of the equation were nailed down, the public access, the amenity, the replanting, and all of that. And it is, when we joined all the dots, it didn't recommend itself as an economic prospect for us to advance. And well and good. No more than I have an ideological disposition in terms of not been opposed to the sale of trees. I don't have an ideological disposition to say, well, we must sell them, even if it doesn't make sense. It's purely a pragmatic. What is in the best interest of the state right now that needs money to invest in jobs? Because the 350,000, 400,000 people who are seeking jobs right now, they want answers, and they want us to be vigorous in our search for answers for them.
And I appreciate that for you it's not ideological. And I would ask that you just bear in mind that for me and for many other people, it is. And, there's no right or wrong to it. It simply is. Thank you. Probably a question for Ms. Fitzgerald. Yeah, I'm glad that it's being reconfigured. I actually learned a lot through the debate around what was and was not working in Coillte, and the fact that we didn't seem to be getting much of a return from our trees. Can I ask you to I'd just like to emphasize the point when you are thinking about it. It's very relevant to Wicklow, is the tourist and public value potential is massive. I'll give you a quick anecdote. I picked up a load of Belgian tourists going over the Sally Gap a few months back. And they said they'd flown directly from Belgium. They got on a bus in Dublin Airport, they'd gone straight out and they'd walked a load of the Wicklow Way. They've walked all over the world, in Chile and all sorts of places, and they said they'd never encountered an area that was so spectacular for tourism and walking and had such little infrastructure. They said anywhere else you go around the world, they'll have cabins, they'll have service sites, they'll advertise. They only found out about Wicklow and Ireland and Coillte and all that by accident. So I believe there is a huge opportunity for us to create an infrastructure. It's partly Coillte, it's probably a joint venture with national parks and stuff, but certainly a lot of it goes through Coillte land. So I'd just like to emphasize that I think there's huge potential to build our tourism, walking, cycling infrastructure.
I think maybe just on that point, to the Minister's point, all of those considerations are I suppose it's somewhat irrelevant to say now, but all of those considerations are absolutely standard parts of international forestry deals. So, access, recreation, social value, all of that would, as a matter of be taken as read as being built into any transaction around the forestry. So, and so we'd have a very high level of awareness of that, as does the Minister and his department.
Great, and I guess my point is it needs a change, because Coillte could say, oh sure, we knew that too, but when you compare our infrastructure to foreign infrastructure, it's not matched by reality. It's wonderful for them to have said, oh sure, but I think there is an opportunity for investment, and probably fairly low cost, low capital intensive. Mr. Fitzgerald, can I ask, the new era, I heard you say, or Minister, maybe it was yourself, that there was going to be, or Fitzpatrick, I beg your pardon, thank you Minister, I beg your pardon. That there was going to be borrowing in time, that there would be a debt facility available. Will that borrowing for the new era companies be off balance sheet?
Well, yeah, in relation.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Are you talking about water, which is the borrowing?
Was that the one you were talking about, that there will in time be a borrowing facility?
I suppose the comment was that Irish Water has been set up such that over time it will be able to raise finance on itself on international.
As a commercial semi-state.
Yeah, sure.
Like Port Gosh or ESB.
Yeah. Will that be off balance sheet?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It'll be their own.
Yeah, sure. Great. No, it's good. It's convenient. Great. Can I ask as well, one of my concerns with the semi-states is the cost, right? So if we take the ESB, we have some of, if not the best paid utility workers in the world. And the Irish people pay some of the highest prices. In order to pay for these salaries, the Irish people pay some of the highest prices for electricity in the world, right? Great if you're in the ESB, bad for everybody else. Can I ask, is anything going to be done to ensure that that sort of system doesn't occur in other new era areas like water?
Well, let me just take the energy side first. I mean, the way we have to have a competitive market, and that pushes down the price of everything and makes companies efficient. And bluntly, since we came into office, we have been required by the economic climate to do due diligence on every state asset we have, not only the commercial semi-states, but everything, including the public service and everything else. That's a huge job of my department, and other departments have been doing the same, line by line. And I can't say, and I want to be very careful how I couch this, that we got best value from all our semi-state companies in the past. We didn't. And we need to ensure that not only doesn't happen into the future, but that we have to put right what is happening right now. And I think the decisions we're making incrementally will move us in that direction. But you can't obviously turn the tanker around in one instant movement. In terms of pay rates and so on, we've looked at the top rates of pay immediately. We've put a new hay rate in, hay scale. It's a hay pay scale. That put a ceiling of 250,000 on the CEO of a commercial semi-state company. As you know, some of them were getting very significantly more than that, and that has to migrate down to other skill sets within companies. But the other side of that, and I'm very conscious of it, and I said it publicly, we also have to ensure that if we have commercial companies, that they are offering commercial contracts, and that we get the best people to run them in the best commercial return to the state. I don't know whether Eileen wants to add anything.
No, I mean, I think our approach to that really, I suppose, would be in looking at the overall finances of the company, and we will be over time creating, peer group comparisons. Like we have some peer group information, for instance, on Coillte as it happens, and that would tell a lot in terms of the cost structures of the companies. But that's a kind of, it's a 5-year job, if you like. Okay. So it's to make sure that when you're comparing Irish companies with other Irish semi-states with other similar companies, that you're choosing an appropriate peer group, and that your comparisons are, if you like, on a like-for-like basis.
Thanks. Minister, the $3 billion target for the sale of state assets, you indicated in your speech that the second half of it will underpin additional lending, which sounds great. It sounds like a good idea. Thanks, Chair. Can I ask, is the idea there that it would be some form of co-investment fund for things like the European Investment Bank, microfinance funds? Could you just talk a bit about how you see that underpinning additional lending happening?
It's a question that was raised, I didn't fully answer it before. Once we had got the 50% agreement that we could invest directly, I didn't want to simply take the other 50% and use it to retire debt. As much as I'm anxious to squeeze down the total quantum of our debt, it would be almost tokenistic in terms of what we could do, and I think much more valuable if we could use it in a different way. And so we were thinking outside the box in how we could use that, and it just came up in our discussions in Brussels, as I explained, what Greece was doing, to use it as a backstop to ensure other investors, such as the European Investment Bank, which needed either a state guarantee, which would put it on balance sheet, or would need a bank with a AAA rating, which are very scarce. We don't have any. Could we use this as a backstop? And that's the sort of leveraging of additional monies. Bluntly, we haven't thought that element out in any great detail yet. I welcome any ideas you might have in financial instruments.
Yeah, could I just add quickly to the mix?
Can I just finish?
Sorry, yeah.
One of the things, we've just finished a report published, in fact, today. The European Investment Bank were the commissioners of the report. It was done jointly by the European Investment Bank and PwC on financial instruments and the use of financial instruments, and it might be a way that we could use some of that money in the medium term. But these things have to be firstly fully investigated and then agreed with the Commission before we can actually deploy any of the money to that.
Okay, thank you, Minister. Final comment, thanks.